right, so this is the format of the Fireside chat. Just a quick reminder while you're taking your place, we will speak English if you need the headset. This is the Fireside chat where we're going to have 15 minutes with Thierry DEAU, founder and CEO of Meridiam. Thank you very much. Thierry, so first of all, if some of the people in this room or joining us online have been here last year or even the year before, I want to kind of remind everybody that this is our annual catch-up. We do this Fireside chat with Thierry absolutely every year, which is a great way of having a chat and having this kind of, room temperature check when it comes to infrastructure, the trends, everything that's been happening. And this is when we do catch up here on how things have changed or not changed over the past year. So let's start exactly with this. What has changed since we last spoke in 2023?
So what has changed is really the chaos around this asset class, or the chaos in the world generally. So the geonomics or the geopolitics have increased the level of disruption. However, I don't think the main trends for infrastructure or even decarbonization has fundamentally changed. And this is because the train has sort of left the station. The Green Deal is on path, and despite a few, we were joking earlier about the Berlaymont being the last piece of stability in Europe. It might be, it's surprising. But clearly those policies, including those policies implemented by Biden with the IRA or the Infrastructure and Job Acts, are there to stay. I mean, there are a lot of talks and people between the fear caused by trade wars around the industry that actually supports decarbonization. I think we will still see a huge amount of need for investment in infrastructure to decarbonize, and fiscal policies have been here and there, and most countries have real fiscal difficulties. So this is time for investors to actually step up.
Have you seen this slowdown when it comes to energy investment over the course of the past year? Or if it's not a slowdown, maybe it's a slowdown in decision-making when it comes to the investment?
I'm not sure. There's been, I think, opportunities are a bit more difficult to really emerge and get executed. And this is all because the chaotic sort of regulatory environment that is around it sometimes. But I don't think in terms of appetite that there is any slowdown in investors' appetite to go there. And it's also changing. It's also changing and focusing on a lot of technology for decarbonization, as was discussed a bit earlier, versus just producing renewable energy, which is already quite sort of developed when you think about Europe, even in the US, but not yet in the emerging markets to a sufficient level.
Before we go there, so let's talk a little bit more about the geopolitical context. This is something that we cannot avoid when it comes to the bigger picture as well. So this year is quite something, if I may say, with everything, all the range of elections happening, the EU elections, the elections in France happening, which also bringing the change of policies, and now we're 24 hours before the American presidential election. So when it comes to this bigger geopolitical context and the energy investment, energy infrastructure investment, what is your take?
And I think the geopolitical situation, let's be honest, it's not going to improve soon. The number of sociopaths that are leading many countries has increased or is likely to increase after Tuesday. So it's not going to change, it's not going to improve. So we have to get our own tools to be able to handle that chaos. Because at the end of the day, they make a lot of noise, but they're not necessarily entirely good at changing policies or implementing new policies. So we have to remain calm, and as sort of long-term investors, and infrastructure can be this place of stability for investment because it's addressing something that is fundamental. The other thing that is not going to get better is severe climate events. I mean, we just lived it in Valencia just a few days ago, and this is going to be a repetitive thing. Every year we will have them. The insurability of all these assets will be questioned, and so we have to find solutions, and we have to think long term and sort of deal with the chaos, managing it as best as we can, but using the tools, understanding, and also working as a collective group, because it's not so much about lobbying, it's also about finding solutions that can be scaled up.
Well, mind you, after Tuesday, as you say, we might also have somebody who doesn't really believe in climate change and the whole withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. We remember how things were. I want to ask you, with this enormous factor of unpredictability that we are heading towards on that side of the Atlantic, how could we change that into, because this is one of the most important key aspects when it comes to infrastructure investment, energy investment, the possibility to be predictable and to predict things, to long plan things. How can we improve it here in contrast with what we might see elsewhere, put it this way?
I think if we look back, even when you withdrew from the agreement in its first mandate, the industry continued to invest heavily in decarbonization and technology to address decarbonization and climate change. So I think, and on top of that, Biden came with the IRA and a plan, and this is probably not for the Americans about decarbonizing the world, it's about winning a battle against China. Because China is going for decarbonizing the world with technology. And so this battle is unlikely to change. And even Trump will have difficulty pulling out of things like IRA. So I expect disruption because he's unpredictable, but I don't expect that he will take money away from all the Republican states that have been benefiting from the IRA so far. So we have to be a bit more nuanced on that, and what we can do is continue what we do best. We have a path. We have to keep focusing on our decarbonization paths, country level, EU level, and of course, there are a number of issues. People complain about too many regulations. The CSRD is traumatizing a number of people. This is where Brussels will have to be nuanced and a bit flexible in terms of how this is being applied, because it's a reporting requirement, but it gives people the ability to actually draw a line, draw a direction and a path, and then say what they're doing against that.
Right, let's go there. Let's go into the into EU policies, and let's speak a little bit about that, because unfortunately we do have only 15 minutes, which is quite hard given everything that's happening and some of the topics that you have touched upon. When it comes to the European Green Deal, now this is again. This is something we have seen a bigger focus during the previous mandate of the previous Commission and stuff. Now we have the European elections passed. We are entering the new multi-annual functional plan for the Commission, the MFF. Let's talk about the importance of the long-term signal, and also at the same time, while we have that long-term signal, we have extreme reliance from Brussels, we have extreme reliance on national budgets. Do you see the momentum slowing down there? Because there might be a feeling that the ambitions somehow cooled down, but at the same time, there is a push for extra commitments. So it's a rather controversial take here.
No, it will reopen the question of borrowing at EU level, which the Germans really hate. But clearly, I mean, the borrowing that has been done at EU level has a terminal date. Why do we have a terminal date for this borrowing? God knows. I mean, because the Germans wouldn't do it otherwise. So the question will be reopened because there will be a need for more resources, and I don't think anybody is willing to add taxes that are collected by the EU, but that may be something that comes up as a solution. But clearly there will be we have to reopen the debate about the EU capacity to borrow on an indefinite basis rather than on a fairly short or mid-term basis. And I think this is where the resources can come. Everybody's trying to avoid it. At the same time, no one is trying to really back down from the Green Deal. I think the Commission, at least the President of the Commission, was elected by a majority in Parliament that wants the Green Deal, and there is quite a level of stability in that center core of EU Parliament supporting the Green Deal, which is very different from the various countries around, including Germany or France, because we have a fairly scattered parliament, and other places like Hungary or others. But clearly, a number of member states have benefited already and want to continue to benefit from that. So that question will be reopened, I'm pretty sure.
But when it comes to this push for extra commitments, how do you see that and how do you leave that through at Meridiam?
I mean, what we try to do is, when you address things like technology for decarbonization, obviously we all have, as long-term investors, to sort of de-risk these things. I mean, it's good to take venture capital risk, but we're not venture capitalists at Meridiam. So blending grants, public lending and long-term lending, as was done, for example, with Vercor, this is a mix of everybody sort of supporting an initiative from the public and private side to actually make it work. So we still need that work between public funds and our investment to actually accelerate decarbonization.
Let me take you to this. We do have a couple of minutes left, but when it comes to the priorities and the key message, if I asked you now, when it comes to, if you can only have one answer now to address the room and to address the inaugural day, when it comes to how not to alarm the investors, when it comes to hindering development, what would be your take? Because, we've mentioned what happened and how the situation has changed when it comes to infrastructure and the investment in energy infrastructure over the past year with those changes there. We also touched upon what's coming at us and how that unpredictability is going to hit. But this is where we are. This is the path that we already come through, and this is what we're looking at. How to avoid alarming investors and continue that.
Going back to fundamentals, we are at a time where rates are going down, inflation is being sort of controlled, fiscal room at many levels is limited. So it's the great opportunity, more than ever, for investors to really address infrastructure and decarbonization at the same time. The regulatory thing will muddle through as usual. It's not supposed to. We shouldn't overreact because of these sort of political ups and downs. They're very short term because most of them are populist rather than long-term policies. And so therefore, infrastructure remains a fundamental need, and decarbonization will remain a fundamental need because we will not be able to be inclusive if we don't address what happens in Spain, if we don't address what will happen in Spain, in France, and everywhere else in Europe every year, because this is what's coming.
So this is the way, if I may just rephrase in a nutshell, it's about, yes, things are happening. There is some kind of stormy waters there, but it's not about looking at what is happening now, but sort of eyes on the prize and going it into the long term.
Exactly. Look at the long term and everything will be good.
Oh, there you have it. Everything will be good. Look at the long term. Thank you so much. I can't find better words there. Thank you.